Uh, Hello, everybody. The reason I was asking you to come is that I really wanted to touch upon the initiative of our European friends to raise the issue of migrant crisis on the Polish-Belarus border. Frankly, I started to suspect that maybe our Estonian, French, and other colleagues, they have some kind of masochist inclinations, because to raise this topic, which are total shame for the EU in front of us, would be very brave. We have a lot of questions to them, and I will of course ask them to our colleagues. I hope that maybe if they come to Stakeout themselves, maybe you will also dare to ask them some questions, because the narrative that they will be promoting to you is that Belarus is responsible for this crisis, that Belarus is using migrants as a tool of war. I'm not representative of Belarus, of course, I'm representative of Russia, but nevertheless we are very well aware of what's happening on the border. It's very disturbing. There are people who came legally to Belarus and who want to enter to the European Union countries, most commonly Germany. These migrants are not being allowed to go through the border. They are being pushed from the border, they are being prosecuted, they are being beaten. There are a lot of cases when Polish and Lithuanian border guards beat migrants and push them back to Belarusian territory. I would say that this is a total shame and total violation of any possible international conventions and rules. There are disturbing news. I watched Euronews today, for example, and there was a piece of news that Lithuania, Minister of, if I'm not mistaken, Minister of Interior of Lithuania, asked the militarized group of snipers to be present at the border to help Lithuanian authorities to tackle migrant crisis. So it's absolutely difficult to comment on this, because it looks like a hunt, not like a situation where people interact. So what are the reasons of this crisis? Migrants have been coming to Belarus all the time. It's not that there is a certain influx of refugees that really all of a sudden found themselves on the border. The difference is that before this summer, Belarus had the readmission agreement with the European Union in force. And this agreement was suspended after European Union introduced a new wave of sanctions, because it is now not possible economically, and absolutely there are no reason politically for Belarus to adhere to this agreement. This happened back in summer. So there are no reasons why Belarusians should take these people who arrived legally in Belarus, who have visas, who have official reasons to stay, like in the hotels booked, and so on and so forth. They have no reasons to send them back to the countries where they came from. That would be a total violation of any international conventions. Of course, there is a game of shifting blame now by European Union. They want to picture Belarus and sometimes even Russia as perpetrators of this crisis. Well, we've got used that the main slogan of European and Western politics right now is keep calm and blame Russia, so it's no surprise for us. But the facts are a very stubborn thing, and they do not support the version of events presented by our Western colleagues. So what can be the way out? The way out, of course, goes through the dialogue. It's not the first time that European Union faces this time of a crisis. One can really remember about the reasons why these people are really fleeing their countries, who was behind them, which countries destroyed their countries. We all felt this several years ago in Mediterranean, in some countries of Mediterranean, and the attitude of European Union was totally different than it is right now. That's why it's clear double standards. Belarus is engaged in dialogue with UN authorities. Belarus is absolutely transparent. It's no problem for journalists, for NGOs, for whatever, to go to the places where the migrants are placed. They distribute humanitarian aid. There is no problem of access for any UN agencies or whoever to this territory. On the contrary, there is no access for NGOs, for journalists, for volunteers to the areas where the 12,000 or even 15,000 according to some estimates, Polish guards, Polish armed guards are situated. The same thing about Lithuania. So this is absolutely not transparent. I know that this is a matter of criticism within the EU itself, but this is family business of the EU. So to cut it short, I would encourage you to ask all these questions to our Western colleagues when they come here and say that Belarus and Russia are to blame for this crisis, and one must punish these countries and so on and so forth. You know it better than myself. Okay? Yeah.
With regard to the, you called it a crisis on the border. Do you think the Council need to take any action with this regard? And my second question is, as you mentioned, your Western colleagues, most of them call it a manufactured crisis. This has nothing to do with, not much to do with the migrants. It has a lot to do with the sanctions and other politics with Belarus and possibly maybe extension Russia in a way. How do you assess that? What is your response to that?
Well, I would say that well, the answer to your question about the allegedly manufactured crisis is that you will find it when you speak to the refugees. I saw several reports, for example, by the German television today, and the German television reported from the place where the people who managed to get to the from Poland to Germany are placed now, and they are telling their stories. They are telling the stories that it was absolutely their decision. Nobody pushed them. They have legal reasons, because Belarus has, with some countries, it doesn't have visa regime. It's visa-free. With some countries, they have a possibility for any person buying ticket and going to Minsk or to other city to stay there legally. Nobody is asking, of course, is the final target, final aim of these people to get to the EU. There is no such question, and Belarus is not supposed to ask such questions. So if you speak with the refugees, then, of course, you will find the answer to this question. And the first question was, sorry?
About Security Council.
Security Council. There is a distribution of labor within the UN, and not all the problems should be tackled by Security Council. Again, my personal opinion is that it is very shameful for our European friends to raise issues like this, because they expose their double standards and their absolutely wrong politic towards this crisis. But it's up to them, of course. I don't know whether they are masochists or not. I don't know. Sorry to repeat it the second time, but I really start to suspect it. So Belarus is in contact with international organizations who deal with migration, with relevant UN agencies, and there is absolutely no problems in interacting with them. And we think that it should be tackled through these ways, unless, of course, somebody wants to politicize this crisis and to use it for political interests. That's not our intention, for sure.
Thanks, Ambassador. Michelle Nichols from Reuters. Just to clarify, so Russia and Belarus are not in any way helping these migrants move to the Polish border?
What do you mean by helping? Bringing them?
Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, and then there are some concerns have been raised by some countries about a build-up of Russian military on the border with Ukraine. Is Russia planning to invade Ukraine?
Never planned, never did, never will do, unless we are provoked, of course, by Ukraine or by somebody else, and there will be the issue of defending of our national sovereignty, because there are a lot of threats coming from Ukraine. And don't forget that the American warships are now in the Black Sea, acting very provocatively. So every day is a very difficult day to avoid direct clash in the Black Sea. And we warned our American colleagues that this is a mere provocation. But we have the right to concentrate our troops wherever we want. This is not at the Ukrainian territory, this is Russian territory. And if you read again, I repeat myself, sorry, but if you read the threats, the concrete threats that are being pronounced in Ukraine against Russia, against Russian territorial integrity, then you will understand that a certain precaution is a logical step in such situation. Okay?
Mr. Ambassador, Edith Lederer from the Associated Press. If the aim is to try and de-escalate this, there were photos and reports of Russian fighter jets flying over Belarus. And some people saw this as a provocative act and a warning. What was it?
Those people who see this through these optics, they forget to mention that it is a response to a massive build-up on Polish-Belarusian border. We have our obligations also within the union between Russia and Belarus, and between in the framework of CSTO. So if there is a build-up of military resources on the border with Belarus, we have to react. Again, this is just reconnaissance flights. Nothing more than this. We are not breaking anything, and that's why really I can't understand why this issue is being raised. Only if you want to use it for political purposes. Otherwise, this is something quite normal activity. I would say nothing behind the ordinary. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day. Don't forget to ask these questions if you dare, of course.